I know, things are crazy right now, but this episode is not about a person. I'm not going to mention a single name. It's not about politics, and it's definitely not about whether you love or hate electrification. This episode is about a car. A car that transformed an entire industry and then will ultimately be responsible for killing off that whole industry. Walk into any dealership anywhere in the world and you'll see a feature or a car or a lineup or an entire brand that wouldn't exist were it not for this car. The list of things the Model S did first is, to use a word we hear far too often, unprecedented. And it wasn't just things it did initially, it was the Model S's constant evolution that continually added new features. As a result, the traditional car companies are still trying to catch up a decade and a half later. Nobody says you have to like any of this. But if you're a car person, you owe it to yourself to understand the unimaginable impact that this big red hatchback had on the entire world. From the original prototype to the first production version to the final variant, the Tesla Model S is the most important car of a lifetime. If you drive your cars on the road, it's not a matter of if, but a matter of when something will happen. Hagerty's Guaranteed Value Insurance lets you agree on your classic car's value before something happens, not when it's already too late. So your car can get back out on the road where it belongs. Get a free quote at jasonsentme.com. Tesla has just released a final signature edition to commemorate the end of the Model S, which has been around for 14 years now. The automotive world has changed so much in those 14 years that we need to spend a minute in a time machine. So let's go back to the beginning. It wasn't the beginning of Tesla. This was the beginning of electric cars, where it seemed like they had no place in the world at all. It seemed like they just couldn't work. In late 2012, I was at Road & Track magazine, and I came up with the idea of taking a Tesla Model S from LA to Palm Springs. It was an impossibility. First of all, because of the door handles. The car had electrically retracting door handles that didn't work and wouldn't let me in, and so I looked like I was trying to steal the car in the parking lot. The first thing I wrote in my notes is, if judged by the door handles, Tesla will never make it. And I was convinced I was never going to make it to Palm Springs either. Even if that rolling science experiment didn't break down, I was sure I was going to run out of range. There was no EV in the world that could do something like this. It was 125 miles away over a near 3,000 foot tall mountain range. The only other EV for sale at the time was a Nissan Leaf, which was rated at 73 miles of range on flat ground. And one of them had stranded me on the side of the road after 40-something miles because I turned the headlights and the heat on. Forget about superchargers, they didn't exist yet. And even if I made it to Palm Springs, how would I charge it when I got there? So I started calling all the hotels in town and finally found one that found a 240-volt outlet near a parking spot. And so I paid them to cone it off for me. Made the drive, it made it. And it was a genuine pain in the ass living with that car. Horrible. But after 3 days, I fell in love with the car. It was comfortable, it was fast, it was smooth. I love the power, I love the regen, I love the steering, I love the space, the hatchback usability. I love the fact that you could watch educational adult anatomy videos on the touchscreen. Speaking of yanking things, I also yanked the fuse for the ABS pump, which made the dashboard light up like a Christmas tree, but it let me do donuts for science. A couple minutes later, my phone rings, and it's a very nervous-sounding Tesla employee calling to make sure that everything was okay. Seems they were watching very closely because this was the first time they had ever loaned a Model S to the media without a chaperone, and it was sending home all kinds of help messages thanks to the errors. And so I had to confess to the yanking of the fuse, and I told them that everything was fine with the car, but by the way, the door handles are driving me nuts. Okay, whatever. I go to bed. Next morning, I wake up to find they'd beamed a software update to the car that mostly fixed the door handles. And I thought, oh my God, these people mean business. This car is going to change the world. And it did. The Tesla Model S was never perfect, not originally and not now. But thanks to it, the automotive world is very different today. Here's what you might not have realized. The Model S is different too. It pulled off one of the slickest tricks in the history of the automobile. For 14 years, it's been called the same name. It's even looked remarkably similar, but it's become a completely different car. On the left is the original 2012 Model S Signature Edition. On the right is that 2026 Model S Signature Edition. And they're both red. But you don't have to study the paint codes to tell these two cars apart. In our minds, all Model S's are the same car. But look closely, and it's going to take you a long time to find a single part that is the same between these two cars. When I say these cars aren't the same, I'm not just talking about things you can see. I'm talking about everything, like, for example, the entire propulsion system, or the entire low-voltage electrical system, or the entire suspension and braking system, or even the actual structure of the car. And there wasn't one moment where all of these changes happened. The changes were continual. This car consists of roughly 5,000 parts. This car, only 3,000. That parts reduction was there to simplify everything from assembly to service. And here's the crazy part. Of the parts that remain, just 3% of them are shared with the original. For perspective here, when a car company comes out with an all-new generation of cars, typically 50% of the old parts carry over. This is just 3. By that math, a conventional car would need 6 generations to get to 3% parts carryover. 6 generations is like going from the original 1964 Ford Mustang to the last of the S550 chassis pony cars in 2023. In other words, these two cars represent the equivalent of 60 years of conventional automotive iteration, squeezed into just 14 years, all the while looking like a barely different car. A barely different car, even though the production Model S did have 4 front ends, 3 rear ends, and 2 widths. I don't even dare to try to compile the total number of different motors, batteries, drive configurations, names, pricing, EPA ratings, and here's why. Tesla isn't structured like a regular car company. Regular car companies all have a moment where they tell their engineers, stop, pencils down, no more work. The thing enters production and, barring recalls or service campaigns, nothing changes for at least a model year, or 7, with maybe 1 planned facelift in the middle. On the other hand, Tesla never stopped developing the Model S. They just kept working on it. And if someone came up with a new way to reduce weight or complexity or help with crashworthiness or efficiency, they just made a rolling change. And they made thousands of rolling changes. The Model S didn't just get a new feature here or there. No, over the course of its lifetime, the long-range model lost 375 pounds and became some 40% more efficient. This wasn't, by the way, just to save a penny here or there. It was to save a buck. Not a dollar, mind you, but a buck. A battery buck. The battery buck is a currency that Tesla's engineers use to calculate the number of dollars that it would have to add or subtract to the battery in order to make up for the range effect of a certain feature. So, let's say a supplier cooks up a low rolling resistance wheel bearing that costs significantly more than a traditional one. They'd pitch it to a traditional car company, and that pitch would go to the chassis engineers, who would say, not interested, the existing wheel bearings already meet our specifications. And that's because the chassis engineers don't care about efficiency. That's the job of the powertrain department. And that's also how you kill all forward progress. At Tesla, there is no specification other than saying every part needs to be optimized and there better not be a better part. And maybe the new wheel bearings would reduce rolling drag from 4 Newton meters to 0.9, and they would cost $2 extra per car, but that would give it 10 miles of additional range. Well, how much battery would I need to go 10 more miles? Figure almost 3 kilowatt hours, and that would cost like $400. And then I would have to carry that extra mass around, which means bigger tires and brakes and more structure. And so the real cost for 10 more miles of range could be $500 per car. 500 battery bucks. So I guess the 2 extra actual bucks for the upgraded wheel bearing seems like a bit of a bargain now, doesn't it? By the way, this wheel bearing thing happened in 2019, and it was one of the many ways Tesla kept gaining a bunch of range out of its cars as if by magic. Tesla's operating philosophy is that the best part is no part at all. And so sometimes the Model S evolved with no additional components, just clever redeployment of what was already there. So as an example, let's talk about the way this door sounds when I slam it. What you're hearing is the glass rattling inside the frameless door. Now listen to the new one. Beautiful. And how they got there was very simple. When you open the door, the computer raises the glass just a little bit, so it's already up against its seals. So when I slam it, it sounds great, and then the window goes right back to where it belonged. Brilliant. Cost them nothing. It's the same thinking that had Tesla redeploy the onboard cameras as 360-degree dash cams, giving us great YouTube videos to watch. Or to invent Sentry Mode, which, by the way, the company developed in just 4 days and then deployed to the cars over the air. Over-the-air software updates just weren't a thing before the Model S. This car did that first, and a decade and a half later, most car companies still can't do this. The list of things that the Model S did first is enormous and includes the whole touchscreen, something that's in every car today. And yes, it's like an iPad, but you gotta know one thing. The iPad didn't exist when Tesla started working on this car. They had to design this whole thing internally. The cost of pushing through all of this innovation meant that Tesla didn't really have the resources to finish development of the Model S. And if you're looking for an example of that, look at this beautiful piece of finished work. This is a production car, not a prototype. And this is the kind of stuff that earned Tesla its reputation for terrible build quality, a reputation that persists to today, even though, you guessed it, it's been fixed, or at least covered up. Let's go back to that original 2012 road test. The build quality made us all skeptical, but the features inside more than made up for it. Suddenly, every other car felt old, outdated. It was like grabbing an old cell phone and thinking, why doesn't this thing have a camera? And seriously, was T9 our only option to text? And so I nervously typed the words. The Model S isn't just the most important car of the year. It's the most important car America has made in an entire lifetime. Send. When they read those words, my editors at the home office thought I had finally gone insane. So we arranged for a second Model S to be sent to Michigan, and when my coworkers experienced that car, it shut them all right up. Our competitor, MotorTrend, drove this very red car, and they didn't think it was just good. They awarded it the 2013 MotorTrend Car of the Year, with all 11 judges voting unanimously for it. Ha! I didn't get it wrong. Or if I did, so did they. Over the following year, the new Tesla received widespread criticism. Many self-professed experts thought it would never actually go into production.
I really believe that the sedan is absolute vaporware. There is no way that Tesla has the cash on hand in order to be able to truly develop their own sedan.
Everyone was appalled at the build quality, but it also received enormous awards and recognition. Consumer Reports called it the best car it had ever tested. It was so good that it broke their scoring system by earning 103 points out of a possible 100. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration found out just how strong its roof was when the Tesla literally broke the machine built to crush its roof. And then the car received the highest overall test score of any car they'd ever tested. It took years and years before the traditional car companies started to take Tesla seriously, and it's easy to see why. Judged by traditional measures like panel gaps, this car wasn't good enough. Look, see this? I can shove my whole finger in there. But what the other car companies failed to understand was that real buyers wanted a Model S. Unlike any other EV, it wasn't priced higher than a traditional combustion car would have been, and yet it could go 265 miles on a charge, more than 3.5 times as far as the slow, ugly, ill-handling, overpriced Leaf. It was handsome. It had the proportions and the speed and the ride and the handling of a luxury sports sedan. In other words, it was desirable. People don't make new car purchases based on panel gaps. If even they notice them, it would be as irrelevant as the lack of a physical keyboard on their new iPhone. Look, obviously, a BlackBerry's keyboard worked a lot better, but the iPhone did so many other things so much better that today we still put up with autocorrect ducking up half of what we type anyway. Nearly 15 years later, it seems like some of the traditional automakers are purposefully kneecapping their iPhones to make their BlackBerries more desirable. Just look at the stunning gas-powered Mercedes S-Class and compare it to the electric EQS. That is a caricature of a car that contains none of what makes a Mercedes a Mercedes. Tesla did none of that cartoonish crap. Look at that shape. It's simple, with really muscular proportions and elegant, understated, mature detailing. And by the way, I bring up Mercedes-Benz for a reason. This is the original Tesla Model S prototype, and it started out as a Mercedes CLS. And it's so rounded. It's just whew. To build what was called Project White Star, the engineering team chopped the CLS in half, stretched the wheelbase by 4 inches, ripped out all the Mercedes bits, slapped in a roadster powertrain, and turned it into the first drivable Tesla sedan. It changed quite a bit by the time it entered production, but ironically not as much as the Model S did after it went into production. The final Model S feels, drives, smells not much like the original, and much of that is for the better. Some of it, like this yoke, is absolutely not. But remember, Tesla is a tech company, and invariably that means they will push too far and have to pull back and iterate. The alternative to pushing too far is not pushing far enough. And so, for a point of comparison, let's talk about another sports sedan that existed back then and exists today, the BMW M5. When the P85 Plus performance model debuted, it cost roughly the same as an F10 M5 and was about as quick to 60. In the decade and a half since, the M5 has gained 157 horsepower. The Model S has gained 604. The BMW is now 0.7 of a second quicker to 60. The Tesla is 2 full seconds quicker. The M5 has gained 1,040 pounds. The Plaid put on just 110. Some of that BMW's weight gain was for a hybrid system that should help efficiency, yet the current M5 is 12.5% less efficient than it was back then, while the Plaid is 23.5% more efficient than the P85 Plus was. Here's the nuttiest part. Today's M5 costs $32,000 more than it did back then, but the Model S doesn't. The current Plaid costs only $16,000 more. Despite all the improvements in speed and efficiency, the addition of all-wheel drive, the interior quality, all the features, the Plaid is, adjusted for inflation, actually cheaper than the old P85 Plus was. If you want to know what progress at the speed of electrons looks like, there it is. Whoop, there it is. It's not because Tesla's engineers are any more brilliant than those at other car companies. The progress comes down to the way the company is set up. Tesla encourages critical thinking, continual improvement, and it doesn't operate in the silos of traditional car companies where the different departments don't talk to each other and good enough is good enough. Inefficiency and stagnation aren't good enough in a tech-driven world that iterates quickly and continually. And like it or not, that's the way the car industry works now, thanks to Tesla. It's what put the American car industry back on the global stage, leading to the Tesla Model Y becoming the best-selling car on the planet. And by the way, that is the first time that an American car has been the best-selling passenger car in the world since the Ford Model T. And the traditional American car brands? Well, right now they're celebrating the end of fuel economy standards, having a grand old time with Corvette CR1s and Hellcats and Mustang GTDs. Which is genuinely awesome. For now. Problem is the car industry is a global one, and the rest of the globe isn't necessarily getting rid of fuel economy and emissions regulations. It doesn't matter whether our market is paying attention, progress keeps progressing. sorry to say, but all of the companies that have just canceled their EV programs in a knee-jerk reaction to short-term adjustments in U.S. emissions and customer tastes have just sealed their fate. They have no chance of long-term survival, and it's all due to this car showing consumers what's actually possible. From direct-to-consumer sales, to the touchscreen, to over-the-air updates, to the entire concept of a fuseless, software-defined vehicle that's incredibly efficient and never stops getting better. To say nothing of the whole concept of just a desirable EV, the Tesla Model S has already proven itself to be the car of the future, and thus the most important car of a lifetime.